And then like, is that just crazy where I'm just like, I'm in a foreign country and I'm just like accidentally held someone hostage?
Jonesy and Ray, just wondering.
Welcome back to Just Wondering podcast, where we will surprise each other with whatever topics come to mind. We literally know nothing and I've made a rule to never research before recording. So buckle up.
We're your hosts. I'm Jones.
And I'm Ray. And Jones, I was just wondering about locks.
Locks, like locks on a door.
Yeah, or like other things that can also lock, but like essentially like
lock and key.
Yeah, lock and key, keys and locks. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering about.
I don't understand them personally. There's some keys that look different, but there's a lot of keys that look the same.
For example, like diary keys, I'm pretty sure all diary keys are the same key. I think they just mass produce those like keys and locks. So I feel like if I had a diary and I locked it and anyone else had a diary, they could just unlock mine and I could unlock theirs, no problem.
I think that's very true. I also think that is true of very cheap padlocks or like bike locks, ones that are really cheap. I think that anyone that has the same one would be able to open
That is
it.
true. I never thought of that.
Not if you buy like a good lock. If you're buying like a Mastercraft or I don't know, like those Dudley or whatever they're called locks. But if you get like a cheap dollar store lock, I bet you anyone who buys that dollar store lock, because they not just print, because they're so cheap, it would just be mass produced.
I think
Can't imagine they have like a unique key.
Yeah, I never thought of that. And I don't know where my bike lock really was bought or anything about it, but it does have like more teeth on it than you would think would be like easily mass produced. But
Interesting.
My bike, like no one would steal. Like I could not lock it up and no one's gonna steal it. So it's more for show. It's like I care about it, so I'm gonna lock it up. But I've accidentally just locked it to itself and not to anything else, and no one's taken it. So like I think a combination lock is better
because it's harder to guess,
to crack the code.
Yeah, I just got a bike lock that's one of the ones where you just like twist the numbers into a line, and it's again not the best lock. It was like a cheap lock on Amazon, but I was like, the bike was free. I still don't want it to get stolen, but at least if I put this lock on it, it'll deter someone. Probably they're not going to guess the code.
And you don't
I didn't get to make the code.
Right. I was just going to ask that. Do you get to make the code? Yeah. It was the same with like your high school locker lock, right? I was like, I wish that I got to make my code.
I remember thinking that I had the same lock through high school. And then I found it when I was moving out of my parents' house. And I was like, oh, I need a gym lock. And then I was like, but I don't know the code. And it took me like 3 tries. And then I was like, oh yeah, it's this. And I didn't remember it because it's just one of those things where you do it for so long that you just need to like spark your mind.
I feel like that is more confusing than a key and a lock.
Oh, like absolutely. But you don't have to carry anything with you.
No, I just mean like the mechanism.
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't understand at all how it makes sense.
And some of them you have to like go past 0. Like one, like to activate it in the first place, you have to like give it a couple twists past 0 and then go to the number and then go back to the other number and stuff. And how does the lock know where in the code you're at?
There has to be like some way where it like lines up where it slides out, but I don't know how it works. Like I have absolutely no idea. So if anyone knows, please let us know.
I feel like
with a lock and key, like pushes things like little pins. That allows it to turn. Yeah, I don't know about combination locks.
But they must be like way harder to pick, because the other kinds where you use a key, like I think you can just like take a wire and pick a lock, right? But like a combination,
like a bobby pin or something.
I feel like a combination lock, like there's something where if you listen to it, you can kind of
hear it like click.
Yeah, into place, so you know that you can move on to the next number. I think
I've seen people do that in movies for safes.
Yeah, that's what I saw in the movies as well. And I saw in the movies as well when you had to enter onto a pin pad to get into something, and they dusted the prints for like to know which keys were touched, but then they didn't realize like one of the keys was touched twice. But then they figured it out and they were able to crack the code or whatever. I think it might have been in the Da Vinci Code.
I haven't seen the movie in a long time.
That might be like a good method if you're trying to choose like a number that might not be easy to crack. I think choose the same number a couple times in your code.
Yeah, I'm not very good at like setting codes like on my phone. Like I always get the messages that are like, your code's too easy. I'm like, well, if someone has my phone already, I'm probably not getting it back regardless. So there we are. I think sometimes I get like with locks, there's a lot of different styles of keys, right? Like I never realized that until I went to get a key cut and I wanted like a Toronto Maple Leafs key or something, obviously. And they were like, we don't have the Toronto Maple Leafs pattern in your key shape. And I was like, I never realized that there were different shapes of keys because I was like, don't you just cut it and then it goes? But there's, you know how the top of a key looks different sometimes? So it's like a different pattern, like a different type of key. And I was like,
so maybe even like,
because you know, some at the top, they look like more like a triangle, but some are more rounded or some are more square. Like they're all different cuts. You can't interchange them. So if you have a square key, you're going to get a square key. That's what I heard.
Right. I'm just thinking because like I've had a house key cut onto a guitar shaped key, right? So I think it must have to do with the grooves that are down, like, I don't know if it's called the shaft of the key, but like, you know how there's like the grooves in that part of the key as well?
Yeah.
So it must be like the different head of the key signifies where that groove is in the shaft.
They probably just have different heads so that you know what one to get. But I remember I was so bummed. I was like, well, I just want a Toronto Maple Leafs key. And then I just don't think I got one because I was like, I didn't need a key. I think I just wanted a Leafs key because like I'm extra like that.
Yeah.
And like keys are like $4. Not that you should like promote waste or anything like that, but it is always nice to have an extra key too.
Or like maybe you want to hide one outside so you don't get locked out, for example.
Has that happened to you?
Today I got locked out of my house because I brought the wrong keys with me when I left the house. So I remembered to bring my keys and then I got home and it was the wrong key. So I did get locked out, which has not happened to me, I think, since I was a teenager. Usually what happens is someone exits and closes the door and then everyone's like, I don't have my key. And I'm like, I have my keys, everyone. Like, it's fine.
Well, because you used to keep your key in your phone case, but then you got a new phone.
And I don't have a case anymore.
That's rebellious. I often don't lock my door if I'm just like running to the store and my landlords are home because I'm like, well, no one's going to break into the back door if people are home upstairs.
It's true.
One time someone was coming over to my house. I was with one friend and another friend was coming over and I'd asked her if she wanted me to pick her up. And she said no. And I was like, oh, that's weird. It's kind of raining, but whatever. And then she was like, oh no, I'm just going to scoot her over. And then I came home and she had already come inside and like hung up a sign. And I was like, that was really bold of you to assume that you could just get in. She was like, Nicole, you never lock your door. So I do at night or like if I go to work all day.
I wouldn't lock my front door if I had a choice, but like the building does automatically lock. But growing up, we never locked the door until like bedtime. If everyone was asleep, we would lock the door. I remember, what is the like Mike Myers documentary, and he's in Canada and he just walks into like multiple people's houses because he's just testing the theory that people don't lock their doors. And
no, I've never seen that, but that sounds great.
I think it's at least not just me. I also
I think it's very common. It's less common in the city, but in small towns, no one locks their doors.
I never lived in a small town, but I guess that makes sense. I think a lot of people that live in apartment buildings lock their apartment door because you don't know who else is in the building, and
there's not as many like witnesses
for break-ins and stuff. Yeah.
But most people know who's like belongs places. Like if you live in a neighborhood, they'd like keep an eye maybe. Although if I saw someone go into someone's house, I'd be like,
they probably know what they're doing. Yeah. But also I think in an apartment building, like maybe this is just like a paranoid thing to think of. If you met someone like, for example, in the elevator and you thought that they were kind of like off-putting or whatever, but like there's more chances of like someone that actually even lives in the building being able to intrude in your space in terms of like assault or something.
I wasn't even imagining like locking a door while being home
to protect yourself, because you would just assume that like if someone came into your house, it's your friend. Like you would never think that like someone planning to harm you would break into your house.
Yeah, most people I know that live in apartments lock their door right away. And I remember being like, you're here and you're awake. Why would you lock the door?
One time I was with a friend of mine going to visit another friend in an apartment building. And we get out of the elevator and he was like, do you remember what their apartment number is? And I was like, no, I've only ever come here once before and I was with them. And he was like, okay, well, I think it's like this one. So he knocks on the door and someone just opens the door and like, yes. And he was like, oh, sorry, wrong apartment. The guy closes the door and then you hear like the deadbolt, the handle, and like the little slidey thing go into place. but he didn't unlock all those things before opening the door. He just locked them after.
Wow.
And then my friend turns to me and he's like, well, I guess it was the wrong one. You try one. I'm like, no, I'm going to phone. We weren't even on the right floor of the building.
Sometimes apartments are confusing because what I think is that your buzzer number should just be your floor and then your apartment number.
You know what's crazy? So I once stayed with a friend in Germany, and if you don't have the key, you can't get out of the apartment either.
I had a friend who has a house like that. To lock their door, you have to have the key, and I never understood it as a kid. I was like, can we replace this?
And we didn't have keys because we were just visiting, right? We stayed there for 2 days. And
Yeah.
I took the spare key with me and I went out and I locked the door. I went to get a coffee and I came back and there was like a trick to the key that no one told me, you know, like when you sometimes have to put it in, pull it out a little bit, give it a bit of a wiggle, whatever. So I didn't know what the trick to the key was. So I couldn't get back in. So I called inside. I was like, can you let me in? And they said, no, we need the key on this side to be able to open the door. So I ultimately locked someone inside accidentally. Like that is very poorly designed. That seems very unsafe.
Yeah.
What if there was a fire?
Unsafe for a fire. For sure, unsafe for a fire.
But it'd be really good if you were holding someone hostage. And then, is that just crazy? Where I'm just like, I'm in a foreign country and I'm just like accidentally held someone hostage. But that's all I was thinking. I was like, this would be really good for holding hostages and for nothing else.
A couple weeks ago, I was in a friend's backyard and we were trying to take something out of their shed, but like the shed hadn't been opened in a couple years. So the lock was like super, super stuck, kind of like rusted. And then she was like, oh, let me get some oil to put on the lock. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I was expecting her to come back with like WD-40 or like something like that. And she poured vegetable oil on the key and put it in the lock. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, that's not, she's like, oil is oil. I was like, I don't think so, but it worked. And then she said she also did it on her condo door. She's like, yeah, I poured vegetable oil on it and now it used to stick and now it doesn't stick. It's like, I think you're not supposed to do that.
That's good to know. I house sit for a lot of people. And there are times where like the key works totally fine. But then the next time I go there, the key doesn't work. And I start to wonder, like, have I mixed up the keys? Like, do I not anymore like know which key goes with which lock? But it's actually just like with the season change, if there's humidity, then sometimes it catches. Or if it's in the wintertime, sometimes it freezes. I've had to use a key before where like the key itself works in the lock, but from the inside, the twisty thing seizes up. So you can't lock it when you're inside. But a coworker told me, oh, if you can't get the front door to lock, you can just pour hand sanitizer on it and you can just twist it. So like there's so many tricks to be able to make locks and keys work.
I would never think of either of those things.
Yeah, someone told me, oh, just warm it up with a lighter and it will defrost. And I was like, and then how do I touch it though? Because I'm not touching metal that I just warmed up with a lighter.
I've only ran into that issue with my key in my car because of like winter. And then I just go like this till it unlocks.
If there's like freezing rain or something too, it can also create a seal over it and you can't get your key even to get into it. Yeah,
I was just thinking about the saying, hold it under lock and key. I guess it would like, that saying only means something if it's like a strong lock and a strong key. Because like if it's like you said, a diary lock, probably isn't kept that tight, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's funny when like people like hide keys.
Well, like I told you today, you should hide a key outside.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And like there have been times as well where I've been locked out of somewhere that I'm supposed to be like cat sitting or house sitting and checking in on. And they'll just be like, oh, well, you can find the key in this spot if you don't have time to do like a handoff or whatever, right?
Sometimes I used to hide a key outside because like if someone was going to come over, then I think it depends. Like I don't want to leave it there all the time. And usually I would bring it in if I was like sleeping. I just feel like you're so vulnerable when you're sleeping. You don't want someone to be able to potentially break it.
I would lock the front door going to bed. I would leave it unlocked the rest of the time. I know someone who like always like left his car door unlocked. And I just like had this idea one day, like if I could finish work before him, I could hide in the back seat and jump out and scare him because he had been trying to scare me for a while. And I like don't really get scared. I was like, I'm going to get him so good one day. And then he bought a new car that like, locks automatically when he gets far away. And I was like, I can't believe that I missed every opportunity.
An opportunity. Yeah, that sucks.
That's so scary. Like you see that in like horror movies where like you get in the car and you like go to turn it on and you look in your rearview mirror and there's a killer in the back seat. Like I wanted to do that to him so bad.
Oh my God. Yeah, that would be so scary. I'd be so scared. Ray, what are you drinking?
Today I'm drinking Aurora Borealis Pale Ale.
Favorite. I love that one so much.
It's so good. What are you drinking?
Aurora. I am drinking Handy Dandy Trusty Miller Lite, and it has all the baseball teams on it. So go Jays, go!
Cheers.
Let us know how you feel about locks. If you understand how a combination lock works, let us know. Have you ever been locked out of somewhere or locked in somewhere? We'd love to hear your stories. You can email us at justwonderingpodcast.ray@gmail.com. Follow us or DM us on Instagram at just.wondering.podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Peace.
Peace. I almost pressed end on the meeting.